She woke late, which was usual. What wasn't usual was that this would be the last time she would ever wake up. The house on 5th Helena Drive in Brentwood was quiet in the morning, the Mexican tiles cool underfoot, the garden outside already warm with California summer, the jasmine she had planted herself running up the wall by the front gate. She had bought the house the previous year, the first property she had ever owned in her entire life. 36 years old. A global icon. And this was the first place she could call her own. The owning of it still gave her something she had not expected, a specific, grounded satisfaction that was different from the more volatile pleasures of fame. This was hers. The walls and the garden and the tiles and the gate, these were hers in a way that the films and the photographs and the public image were not. She had no idea she had less than 48 hours left to live. She had been unwell. Not physically, though the pills and the insomnia and the years of studio-mandated medication had taken their toll. But unwell in the deeper sense. In the sense of a person who has finally seen clearly what is being done to them and has decided to stop allowing it. The dismissal from Fox in June had hit her harder than anticipated. Not the dismissal itself, she had been fired before, and rehired, and fired again. That was how Hollywood worked when you were valuable but inconvenient. No, what hurt was the public narrative. The amplification in the press of exactly the story she had spent years fighting against. Marilyn Monroe the disaster. Marilyn Monroe the unreliable. Marilyn Monroe the beautiful mess who couldn't be trusted to show up on time or remember her lines. She cared what people thought of her work. In the deeper sense of someone whose work was, along with a handful of human connections, the primary source of meaning in her life. But there was something else happening now. Something bigger than Fox, bigger than the films, bigger than her career. The relationship with Robert Kennedy had reached its final, clarifying phase. The phase in which she understood completely that it was over. That the promises, or the suggestions of promises, had not been and would not be kept. That she had been useful for a time, in the way powerful men find beautiful women useful, and was now becoming a liability. This understanding was fresh enough still to be painful. Not yet old enough to have settled into the more bearable shape of old wounds. And she had made a decision. She was going to talk. The press conference was planned for Monday, August 6th. She had contacted a journalist in Washington. Had spoken to him on Thursday or possibly Friday. The exact date is one of the many details the inadequate investigation left unresolved. The conversation had been, according to later accounts, focused on logistics and on what she intended to say. She was going to talk about the Kennedys. About the promises. About the surveillance she had become aware of, the tapped phones, the FBI files, the sense of being watched by forces she could not fully identify. She was going to talk about Fox. About the studio system. About what Hollywood did to women who tried to be more than the image assigned to them. She had a notebook. Red leather. Filled with names, dates, conversations. Details about who had said what and when. Evidence. The FBI knew about the notebook. Their files, declassified decades later, document their awareness of Marilyn Monroe's plans. They were watching her. They knew she was preparing to speak. Robert Kennedy knew. He was the Attorney General of the United States. He had access to surveillance apparatus that extended far beyond what ordinary citizens could imagine. She was clear. She was calm. She knew what she was going to do. She had 48 hours until Monday. She didn't make it. On Friday, August 3rd, she had a session with Dr. Ralph Greenson that lasted several hours. Greenson was her psychiatrist. The man who had embedded himself into every aspect of her life. The man who had installed his own associate, Eunice Murray, as her living companion and monitor. The man who knew everything about her mental state, her plans, her fears. He said, in accounts given after her death, that she had been in a dark state of mind during that Friday session. That she had been difficult. That he had been worried about her. Worried enough to arrange for Eunice Murray to stay at the house that night. Worried enough to come back the following afternoon, Saturday, August 4th. But here's the question nobody has satisfactorily answered. What was said in that session? What did she tell him about Monday? About the press conference? About what she was planning to reveal? And who did Greenson tell? Because psychiatrists don't exist in a vacuum. Especially not psychiatrists who treat famous patients who have information that could damage the most powerful family in America. Greenson had connections. To the studios. To powerful people. To networks of influence that extended far beyond the therapy room. If she told him about Monday, and she almost certainly did, because that's what therapy is, talking about what's on your mind, then who else knew? Saturday afternoon, August 4th, Dr. Greenson returned to the house. He spoke with her. He later described her as appearing better than the day before. Less dark. More like herself. This detail is important. Because if she seemed better on Saturday afternoon, if she seemed more stable, more grounded, then what happened between Saturday afternoon and Saturday night that led to her death? Pat Newcomb, her publicist, had spent Friday night at the house. She was there for part of Saturday. They had argued about what, exactly, has never been fully clarified. Newcomb left in the afternoon. Years later, Newcomb would refuse to discuss that weekend. Would decline interviews. Would maintain a silence about the final 48 hours that she kept until her own death in 2021. 59 years of silence. About a weekend. About an argument. About whatever she knew. A friend called Marilyn that afternoon. She sounded tired, he later said, but not distressed. Tired in the particular way she sometimes sounded when the performing was exhausting her. The performing. Even at home, alone, on a Saturday afternoon. The performing was always there. The gap between Marilyn Monroe and Norma Jean. The gap between what the world demanded and who she actually was. But she was working toward Monday. Toward the moment when she could finally close that gap. When she could speak as herself about what had been done to her without the performance. She had less than 24 hours left. There was a phone call to Peter Lawford sometime in the early evening. Peter Lawford. Brother-in-law to the president. Brother-in-law to the attorney general. Member of the Rat Pack. Hollywood insider. Bridge between the worlds of entertainment and power. The exact time of the call is disputed. Lawford himself gave different accounts at different points. In some versions he received the call. In others he made it. In his most detailed account, he described Marilyn as sounding strange. Slurred. Drifting. Saying things that alarmed him. Things like say goodbye to Pat, say goodbye to the president, and say goodbye to yourself, because you're a nice guy. He said he tried to call back. Tried to reach her through other means. Got worried. But here's what he didn't do. He didn't go to the house. He didn't call the police. He didn't do any of the things you would do if you were genuinely concerned that someone was in danger. What he did do, according to some accounts, was call Robert Kennedy. And Robert Kennedy was in Los Angeles that weekend. What happened between early evening on Saturday and 4:25 in the morning is the black hole at the center of this story. Several hours. The most important several hours of the investigation. The hours during which Marilyn Monroe went from alive to dead. And nobody can account for them. Eunice Murray was at the house that evening. She has given several different accounts of the timeline of that night, changing significant details in ways that researchers have found deeply troubling. In her earliest accounts, she noticed something wrong around midnight. Saw light under Marilyn's bedroom door. Tried to rouse her. Couldn't. Called Dr. Greenson. In later accounts she pushed the time back. Then forward again. The timeline kept changing. The details kept shifting. And then, in an interview she gave in the final years of her life, she was in her 80s by then, old enough to stop caring about the consequences of truth, she said something extraordinary. She said there were things about that night she had not told the truth about. Because she had been told not to. She had been told not to. By whom? The interviewer asked. She began to say. And then stopped. In the way of someone who has lived with a silence for a very long time and is not sure, even at the end, whether breaking it completely is something they are able to do. She died without finishing that sentence. The police were called at 4:25 in the morning of Sunday, August 5th. More than 4 hours after Eunice Murray claims she first knew something was wrong. 4 hours. What happens in 4 hours? What gets cleaned up? What gets removed? Who gets called? Who arrives? Who leaves? The responding officers arrived to find Eunice Murray in the garden, doing laundry. At 4:25 in the morning. Murray's explanation was that she had been too agitated to sleep, that she had needed something to do with her hands. This may be true. People in shock do strange things. It is also the kind of explanation that explains the behavior without addressing the question the behavior raises. What was on those sheets that needed to be washed at 4:25 in the morning? Inside the house, in the locked bedroom, Marilyn Monroe was found dead on her bed, face down, her arm extended toward the telephone on the nightstand. The phone receiver was off the hook. The coroner would later establish that the cause of death was acute barbiturate poisoning, consistent with a lethal overdose of Nembutal. The ruling was probable suicide. Probable. Not definite. Probable. And here's where the physical evidence starts to fall apart. The lethal dose of barbiturates in her system was consistent with 40 to 50 capsules. 40 to 50. But there was no water glass by the bed. No residue in her stomach. No evidence of how that quantity of pills had been swallowed. Some medical examiners, reviewing the case later, suggested the barbiturates might have been administered through other means. An injection. An enema. Methods that would bypass the digestive system entirely. The original autopsy noted bruising on her body. But the significance of those bruises was never investigated. The investigation, such as it was over before it properly began. The phone records. Her phone records for the last days of her life were removed. The police, arriving at the scene, noted that the telephone company maintained records that could be subpoenaed. Records that would show who she had called, who had called her, in the final hours of her life. By the time a subpoena was sought, the records were gone. They had been removed by the phone company, was the explanation. Routine purge. Nothing suspicious. This explanation has never satisfied anyone who examined it carefully. Because phone records for a pending death investigation aren't supposed to be purged. They're supposed to be preserved as evidence. But they were gone. And with them, the record of who she spoke to, who called the house, in those missing hours between Saturday evening and Sunday morning. It was never found. Not in the house. Not among her possessions. Not anywhere. It simply disappeared. Cars were seen at the house earlier in the night. Neighbors reported this over the years. In the careful, reluctant way of people who know that what they saw places them in uncomfortable territory. Cars that arrived before the police. Multiple vehicles. People moving inside the house with lights and purpose. A quality of activity not consistent with the discovery of a body and the waiting for emergency services. A quality of activity consistent with people searching for something. Or removing something. Or arranging something. One neighbor described seeing a particular car. Dark. Government plates. The kind of car that carries people who don't want to be noticed but have the authority to go anywhere. Robert Kennedy was in Los Angeles that weekend. This is documented. He was at a dinner party in the area. Multiple witnesses place him in the city. Whether he visited the house on 5th Helena Drive that night, whether he was one of the people whose presence neighbors noticed, has been seriously alleged by researchers and former law enforcement officials, and has never been definitively confirmed or denied. His own accounts of his whereabouts that night are not consistent with each other. The timeline shifts depending on who he's talking to and when. The red notebook. The one with the names and dates and conversations. The one the FBI knew about. He was the Attorney General of the United States. He had reasons, the press conference scheduled for Monday, the red notebook, the things she had said she was going to say, to be concerned about what was going to happen on August 6th. He was in Los Angeles. She died. The press conference did not happen. These are facts. The connections between them remain, 60 years later, in the vast space between what is known and what is provable. James Hall was the ambulance driver who responded that night. Decades later, he gave an account that differed significantly from the official record. He said that when he arrived, Marilyn Monroe was still alive. Barely, but alive. He said she was transported. And that during the transport something happened. That she was no longer alive when they arrived at the hospital. And that the circumstances of that change were not what a natural progression of overdose would explain. He said other things too. Things about who was present at the house. About the quality of the scene, the arrangements, the positions, the details that suggested a situation that had been prepared rather than discovered. He gave this account to investigators and journalists over several decades. He was consistent. He didn't change his story. He died in 2014. His account exists, as so much of what we know about the final 48 hours exists, in the uncomfortable space between assertion and proof. She was 36 years old. She had plans for Monday. She had a notebook and a journalist and a press conference and the determination, documented by the FBI in its own files, of a woman who had moved beyond concern for personal consequences. She was going to tell the truth. About the Kennedys. About Hollywood. About what gets done to women who try to be more than the image assigned to them. She had 48 hours. They were her last 48 hours. And in them she was, by accounts of people who spoke with her, herself. Clear. Tired. Determined. Working toward Monday. Working toward the thing she had decided she was going to do. Something happened in those 48 hours that prevented Monday from coming. The full truth of what happened has never been told. The people who could tell it chose silence. Dr. Greenson died in 1979, his papers sealed by his family. Eunice Murray died in 1994, that incomplete sentence still hanging in the air. Pat Newcomb died in 2021, having never spoken publicly about that weekend. The investigation chose, or was forced, to look elsewhere. To accept probable suicide. To close the case. What remains is the question. The large, patient, 60-year-old question that refuses to be answered by the probable of the coroner's report. The question of what happened in the final 48 hours of a woman's life when that woman had information that powerful people wanted stopped. She deserved justice. She deserved, at the absolute minimum, an investigation adequate to the circumstances of her death. She received a probable. She received removed records and inconsistent witnesses and a scene compromised before it was properly documented. The jasmine, in Brentwood, in the California summer, still blooms. The house still stands. And the question, patient and enormous, is still there. What happened? Who was there? And what was done to make sure the world would never know? She deserved Monday. She was working toward Monday with everything she had. Something stopped her. The something has a name, or names, that the world has not yet fully spoken. The speaking is still owed. 60 years is a long time to wait for justice. 60 years is a long time to keep a truth buried. But the truth has a way of surviving. In the inconsistent accounts. In the disappeared evidence. In the neighbors who saw cars. In the ambulance driver who said she was alive. In the housekeeper who almost told the truth before stopping herself. The truth is there. Scattered across 6 decades of silence and sealed files and people who chose not to speak. She is still waiting. We should not keep her waiting any longer than we already have. The question remains, what really happened in the last 48 hours of Marilyn Monroe's life? And who doesn't want us to know?